Hello, and welcome to the Human Being 101 podcast. I'm Kathleen Schafer, and this is Conversations with Kathleen, where we discuss how to live the mission of the Human Being Store: better people, better work, better world. At the Human Being Store, our work is based on a new way of leading in our careers and our lives, and this podcast focuses on how to do that through the lens of current events. This week, I am going to focus and use a lot of examples from what's been going on, from the presidential debate to the campaign and even to what's going on in Washington. And the main point that I want to leave with people as I reflect back on the events of this week is, if there's one thing that's clear, it's this: that if we want to see change in our lives, in our communities, in our country, then it is going to be up to each one of us as individuals, as citizens, to bring that change forward. And that if we expect that someone else is going to do it for us, indeed that's kind of where we've been for the last many years, then we are going to continue to face the chronic lack of any progress towards solution. So let's start with why is this true? Why is it up to each one of us? And I'm gonna start with what we see playing out now in the presidential campaign. We're going to see more and more as the other campaigns come online for federal and state and local offices here this year, in what is one of our quadrennial exercises that we go through in this country, and that is that candidates come before us and they tell us that they have great ideas and great plans and great ways to address issues. And yet we all know from having been through this exercise before that little, if any, of the things that they are talking about will actually come to pass. And that's because there is a truth in here that we are all missing. And that is that solutions don't come from the top down. They begin at the bottom up. And what I mean by that is that Washington or Sacramento or Lansing or whatever state capital or whatever local entity or jurisdiction is really incapable of imposing some type of solution on people that they don't want, because it will be rejected, it will be pushed back on, it will be litigated, it will be legislated. Solutions don't come from the top. Solutions, real solutions, come when people begin to embrace change, and there is a wave. And there are examples after examples of examples of this. We all get into a car now and put on a seatbelt, in large part because we've understood that seatbelts keep people safe, and we've added, many other safety mechanisms since. But, 35, 40 years ago, people didn't do that. Where did it start? It actually started in Michigan. It started with a state legislator there. And it actually began when a family who lost a loved one came to the legislator and said, "We think it's really important that people wear their seatbelts." That's how change starts. Took years. Legislation finally passed. People could see that the rates of fatalities and auto accidents declined dramatically when people wore their seatbelts. Other states began adopting it, and pretty soon it did become federal law. But it didn't start in Washington. It started from the ground up. And there, again, are numerous examples. Legalizing marijuana, gay marriage. These are all things that start in communities where people see that there is something that they want to shift and evolve to, and they begin to shift and evolve at that local level. It rises to the state level, and ultimately it goes to the federal level. That's how change happens. So this fallacy that we're going to sit here and listen to all of these people tell us how they're going to solve our problems needs to be removed. And in for me, that is a big part of how we're going to actually enrich leadership in this country and move towards solutions, which is what we don't want. So first step is to understand and recognize that none of these solutions are going to be delivered to us by the people who are out there expounding on it. The second is to recognize where are the hotbeds, the cauldron of solution and change. And that's in your neighborhood. It's in your communities. And in talking with a client this week about something that he would like to change about the world if he were able, he said, I'd get rid of social media. And the point that he was moving toward was that people have become so fascinated with what's happening with people, well beyond their immediate communities, that they've stopped being engaged and participating where they actually live. And that the disengagement is exacerbated by the fact that we're riveted by the lives of all of these people who, seem on the surface at least, or in their, curated social media presence, to be living lives that are so much better than our own. And I feel like he's really pushing into in such an important point, which is the need for us to become more present and aware of what's happening around us, and where the opportunities are for us to contribute and lead right outside our front doors. Because that's where we live our lives. And, again, we can go through all of the statistics about why it isn't healthy for us to spend our lives riveted to a screen. Another conversation I had recently talked about the fact that while we think virtual reality is on the horizon, it's actually here, because most people spend upwards of 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 hours a day staring at a screen. When I first heard that statistic, I was a little shocked by it, and then I did some of my own reflection and think about the amount of time that I spend in front of a computer. It's on a screen. And the need for us to become aware of what's been normalized and the disintegration of our engagement and awareness of what's going on right around us. So the second step I'm asking us to all consider when we understand solutions don't come from the top, that we have to become more aware and engaged in our community. And why is that? Because it really leads to the third point I want to make today, which is leadership takes place here and now where you are. And that if we as individuals want to lead in our lives, want to contribute and have impact, which is why all of our clients come to the Human Being Stores, because they do want to have greater impact in their lives and their communities. The way to do that isn't, somewhere else. It isn't in 5 or 10 years. It's right here and it's right now. So becoming present to what's going on in our communities unleashes this third step, this third point, which is we all have a capacity to lend great amount of our talents, our strengths, our skills in the places that we inhabit every day. Where is it in your community that you could be a part of actioning solutions around what you'd like to see changed in our environment? How are you able to engage on economic inequality issues or homelessness issues right in your own community? See, this is the part that stops so many people from becoming engaged, is they feel like they have to earn some credential, or they have to go through some amount of time and laboring in order to be able to impact the thing that they want. And the reality is that if you always think you've got to do something else before you can start creating the change you wish to see in the world, you're never going to do it, because there'll always be something there. True leadership is about embodying who you are, again, your talent, your gift, and walking it into the world. Last week, I talked about leadership being love in action. It's taking action on what it is that you have to offer, because that's where solutions will come from. It's the only place that solutions can come from. If you can't tell, I get very excited about flipping the idea that in these election years, from sitting around and listening to all of these candidates tell us how they're going to address these issues, to using this as inspiration for each one of us to connect to the thing that we most desire to see change. Everybody doesn't have to work on every issue. And yet, there is something you can do. I know people listening to this want to see things improved, and you want to use who you are, the best of who you are, your leadership, to impact that change. So that's the call to action I leave you with this week, is that as we, watch the results roll in, from these next couple of presidential primaries, as we get ready for the next Super Tuesday, as we see what's going on in Washington and shake our head at the breakdown of our democracy, as you feel so moved in watching these things play out, my question, my call to you is to connect in to what it is that you have to offer, and to take a step this week. Take a step toward reaching out to a group that you can become involved with, to gathering neighbors to see what you can do in your neighborhood, toward working with or talking about this with one of the groups that you're involved with. And if you just did one thing each week, I guarantee you that in the end of a month, in the end of 6 months, in the end of a year, you would see remarkable change in your community on that issue. And if you indeed want to change the world, that's how it is going to happen. It's going to happen because you've ignited your passion, your leadership in your community, and through that ripple that you've placed, it will go out and it will change the world. I'm Kathleen Schafer. This is Conversations with Kathleen. I'm glad that you're here this week and listening. And if you're curious about how to be supported as you go out and create that change in the world, please visit the website humanbeingstore.com.